Ladies and gentlemen, we now have a short presentation on the topic Risk Mitigation and RBI Compliance through IAM by Mr. Binod Singh, CEO, Cross Identity. With an illustrious career spanning over 35 years, Mr. Singh is a pioneer among the first generation of Indian entrepreneurs who played a pivotal role in shaping the Indian IT and cybersecurity sector. Over to you, sir. Sir, may I also humbly request you to complete the presentation in the allotted time frame of 10 minutes so that we go as per schedule.
Good afternoon to all of you. In this very short time, 10 minutes, I try to do justice to this topic by just giving you a few pointers. Because identity and access management is a topic which can be debated and spoken days together. With about 25 years of experience in this domain worldwide, we thought we will just take a few pointers which are very relevant to the banking industry today. I'm going to essentially cover this topic from two angles, and not necessarily all of it is going to be in some order. So we'll cover two aspects where identity and access management really makes a huge impact on banks. One is the aspect of risk mitigation, and the second is the very hot topic of the RBI compliance. Before we do that, we would talk about, with a fair amount of work that's been done by a lot of experts in the last few years. I personally have been privy to meeting about more than 50 banks over the last 6 months alone. And one has gathered a lot of information in terms of where the whole IAM is as compared in relation to implementation in the banks. We will also talk a little about the journey of IAM and how do you get compliances through IAM, and finally a little bit on the risk mitigation. A lot of work in the next 9 minutes. So let's look at what is the current state of IAM in banking in India. IAM presumably goes into the 5th generation. It's been there for about 22 to 24 years. In all these years, some of us have been quite associated with this area. These are a few things that I would like to talk about where the Indian banks are today. At the best, I can say that they are in the very early stage of adoption of IAM. We have seen this in many other geographies. In the West, about 10 to 15 years ago. In some parts of the world, about 5 to 10 years ago. And it's happening with rapid pace in India today. Never before, however, I have seen this at the rate and the pace at which it's going from a very nascent stage to a fairly mature stage. And in that, I would say these are some of the pointers. One sees very fragmented solutions in the banks today. Whether these are smaller banks or mid-sized banks or large banks, the fragmentation is quite uniform. In fact, when we look at smaller banks and many of the other banks, we find there is a confusion about what is IAM. This whole domain from a very small state has turned into a very complex, more than 30 different components and modules which need to be put in place if you really are looking to implement IAM. And the journey could take multiple years. We have many banks looking at certain aspects of IAM. That could be right from looking at the immediate problems that the banks have to looking at the longer-term compliances, which some of us have started looking at. And most of the things that are being implemented are in early stages or fragmented. Talking about two aspects where IAM is absolutely, it's one technology, as you know, which, unlike any other cybersecurity technology, impacts every user, every single access that you have to applications and indeed to the devices and so on, it impacts you. The risk mitigation part of it is extremely important, where you can proactively identify and address security vulnerabilities through IAM. On the compliance side, the need becomes even more important in the short run. Let's look at the compliance, and I have just about one slide here to give you. If you look at the RBI compliance, and we can talk on this compliance topic for a long, long time, we have been doing considerable amount of research on the IAM compliances for the RBI. Essentially, as a summary, I would say that there are 73 controls that RBI prescribes, which are almost 35 to 40% of the total controls that you have for cybersecurity compliance of RBI. And there are very few technologies that would map to all the 73 controls. There's a new type of technology that is coming in. But before that, I will spend a minute on giving you an understanding of one of the most critical things that you must look at as a bank if you're looking to implement IAM in today's context. As I said in the beginning, IAM is not a small area. It has got three major, I won't even call them modules because they happen to be full-blown technologies, and more than 30 major modules. Now the question is that if you've got so much to take on, what should be the way to do it? What should come first? What should be the journey? How long shall it take? And what shall it really be taking care of? That depends. Just because RBI compliance is applicable to all banks, it does not mean it's going to be a uniform journey. It very much depends on where in the cybersecurity maturity related to identity and access your bank is. And companies like us, individuals like us who have been there for a long time would be very happy to have conversations around this, which has nothing to do with business development. It's all to do about how to design an IAM methodology for your organization. A simple area, which all of you would have heard of, which is called the privileged access management, one of the modules of IAM, that itself has undergone major transformation. Today, privileged access management has become privileged identity and access management. Controls, governance of privileged accesses has become more important. You can't say anymore that it's only the privileged access related to the infrastructure. Because in your applications, whether it's core banking or many other applications, you've got critical privileges sitting out there which are as difficult to manage and monitor as the infrastructure privileges. So whichever module you look at, whichever of these 32 areas that you look at, there is complexity. And through that, the CISOs and the CTOs have the challenge of creating the right roadmap and the way to do things in IAM. A few pointers. We do find that almost every single bank has got some deployments of IAM. We look at simple things like multi-factor authentication for core banking applications. That is achieved by almost everybody, but not necessarily in the right way and in the most integrated way. If you look at privileged access for infrastructure, basics have been achieved. But we cannot say that, as I said, for many of the other areas. I'll just give you, as we are doing all this, as the Indian banks are moving beyond the nascent stage into a little more maturity, the technology landscape is changing dramatically. There is a new area that has come called privileged identity and governance and administration, which is away from the general IGA, which everybody is used to. There are many things like those happening, and it's important, I'm saying it time and again, for you to take a deeper and a wider, broader look at all this before you begin your journey. As we do all this, there are major things happening. We are all familiar with the workforce identity and access management, which is for the workforce and contractors and subcontractors and so on. And then you have the consumer identity and access management. And we see bits and pieces of this being already implemented by various banks. But then with DPDPA coming in, with lots of other compliance requirements coming in, we talked about the efficiencies that are required with the banking sector itself evolving at the business level. All this has to be amalgamated into one single framework, which today is being called identity fabric. And things like identity fabric, where all identities, all types of accesses, all kinds of technologies related to identity and access are sitting. So that's something important that you need to look at. Almost 70% of the risk lies in 20% of your accesses. And that's something which is very important to understand. And there are ways today, rather than going and doing 9 yards of IAM over the years, you can spend just about 4 to 6 months to cover almost 70 to 80% of your risk. This is a matter of more discussions, and we can do that. As far as the methodology is concerned, as I said right in the beginning, we have to evolve a methodology appropriate to a bank for the implementation of the whole technology. And there's a lot of support that needs to come from your technology partner in this particular area. Just providing licenses is not good enough. So net, if you really look at this area, it is in a stage of evolution, initial growth, caught up amidst all the difficulties and the challenges of RBI compliance or the kind of compromises that are constantly happening. And net, IAM happens to be the only technology, as I said, which cuts across every single asset in your organization and provides eventually a solution that could be called somewhat closer to risk-free. So this journey is a long one, and it's important that you look at the longer-term implications of it and design of it as you go ahead and do some point solutions and mitigate your immediate risks to some extent. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing wonderful insights, sir, and for making it quick too.